Hey guys, it's James, and today I'd like to talk to you guys about unions. Now, why? Why is that? Well, first off, it's for my economics project. But interestingly enough, I actually have more of a reason to talk about unions. And that's because, hey, I'm going to be a pipe fitter. And, well, what's that got to do with unions? Well, I'm thinking about joining the local 125, which is here in Iowa, and that is a pipe fitters union. And they pay really good money. But anyways, I started wondering, why do they have really good wages? Why do they have really good benefits? And why would I be paid more every so often and not because of inflation? Well, the answers lie back far enough when the Industrial Revolution started. Right? When that happened, that's when this idea of making factories was invented, I guess. And so entrepreneurs would get land, labor, and capital all together. And they made millions and millions and millions of dollars off of this idea. So they're making money. They're really happy. But guess who's not? Well, you guessed it, the workers. It's the workers that aren't happy. Now, why aren't they happy? They had terrible working conditions, low wages, long, grueling hours. They had to work like 12 or 16-hour days, right? And the average individual needs 8, so that's 24 hours when you put that together. Child labor, and then hardly any benefits, right? 5 things. So, of course, workers aren't just going to sit on their behinds and do nothing about it. So, the Knights of Labor was founded, and they included males, females, African Americans, whites, didn't matter. And that was really interesting because back then, women and anybody who was colored, they didn't have that many rights, or as many rights as they do now. So this was really interesting for me. But anyways, this dude named Samuel Gompers, all right, this guy was a father of labor unions. This guy was pretty interesting, He fought for better wages, abolishing child labor, shorter hours, better working conditions, and better benefits, right? I completely love this guy. I love this guy because he was basically the Martin Luther King for workers, all right? So, sad to say, despite all the work that unions put, entrepreneurs didn't like it. Unions went on strike. They stopped going to work to try to get their demands met. But entrepreneurs fought back. And how? We got private militias. All right? They got private militias to go beat down on these strikers and get them back to work. And it wasn't until like the 1930s that unions started getting power, but I'll get to that later. But anyways, so let's fast forward a bit. 1901, 1902, right around Theodore Roosevelt's presidency, he saw that these coal miners were striking. Now, coal was very, very important to the economy back then because trains ran on coal, all right? And trains transported goods, all right? They transported goods within a matter of days or weeks. This was really good for America's economy. It was because of this that America's economy was like up and running, and like we were like on our way to becoming a superpower because of this. But anyways, because the coal miners were striking, no coal was being excavated, and this posed a threat to the economy. So Roosevelt was like, all right, I'm going to get these two guys, the bosses and the strikers, in the same room, and I'm going to negotiate with them. And he did. So when he got those two in the same room, he was like, all right, you two have a few days, several days, to settle this dispute, and if you don't settle it, then I'm taking over your company, and you guys won't have any more jobs. Capiche? So, what happens? Of course, he didn't take over the mines. Why? Fortunately for the bosses and the strikers, they got together and they worked it out. Go figure. Well done, Theodore Roosevelt. Well done. 10 years later, Triangle Shirtwaist Factory, right? There was a fire and it killed 146 people, and that's because there was too many anti-theft measures, all right? Too many anti-theft measures. And it was because of this that fire codes were enabled, but still, unions didn't get their way. I mean, they got their way after the coal strike, but it wasn't too big of a success. Anyways, fast forward another 20 years, Great Depression. Unemployment was at an all-time high, you know. People were living in shanty towns. They built shacks out of scrap metal and junk. They were starving. No jobs, no money, no nothing. And they nicknamed these shanty towns after Hoover because, why? He didn't do smack. And why didn't he do smack? Well, because he believed that government intervention should be frowned upon, or there shouldn't be any government intervention, because he believed in laissez-faire, or however you pronounce it. I'm sorry, I'm not really good at pronouncing these things. But, yeah, it's not that he was a bad president, it's just that his mindset wasn't right for this situation. And the situation wasn't good. So everybody pointed their fingers at Hoover. I remember seeing a political cartoon where it says, blame it on Hoover. Anyways, he wasn't reelected. And the ironic thing is he's from Iowa. So I haven't seen an Iowan president elected since then. And yeah, I know, shame. But anyways, during his presidency, I believe there was an act called the Norris-LaGuardia Act. And that pretty much got rid of yellow dog contracts, and these were contracts that bosses or people that were applying had to sign these contracts to promise to their employers that they wouldn't join a union. And if they didn't sign these contracts, they wouldn't get the job. Anyways, that was out of the way. Then there was the Wagner Act that gave unions the right to unionize. Now, keep in mind, this was like Norris-LaGuardia Act was 1932, then 1935, right? Was the Wagner Act. And then more acts started coming in 1938, 1947, and all these other acts gave unions or workers the right to unionize. It established minimum wage, got rid of most child labor, and from there, unions fixed a lot of the problems, okay? They had better wages, better working conditions, better benefits, right? Of course, child labor was taken care of by one of the acts, but shorter hours, right? Boom, problems taken care of. In fact, unions started gaining too much power, and that's when the mafia got this idea of pulling some strings within these unions and making money off of them. How unfortunate. But anyways, that problem got taken care of much later when the FBI stepped in and they started doing all these crackdowns and whatnot. It was pretty good, but the Patco air controller strike. Now, that is related. I guess that's a modern day's version of the coal strike, because now goods are being shipped with semis and by boats and by airplanes, sometimes by trains, primarily semis and airplanes. But anyways, in today's economy, people like my brother, he travels a lot for his job. He goes from state to state or occasionally overseas. Well, I'm not sure about overseas, but to Canada and Mexico and whatnot to take a look at gaps and fire managers or promote them if he feels they're doing a good job. This is to save the company money, because if there's a manager doing a terrible, terrible job, if that manager's been warned and whatnot and they're still not doing the correct job, then my brother fires him. But anyways, people like my brother, right? White-collar workers, people who travel a lot, they get the economy rolling, all right? So when these people went on strike, now keep in mind, this was in the 1980s when Ronald Reagan was president. These guys went on strike, millions and millions of dollars, I say, was lost in wages and in tickets, all right? People weren't getting from point A to point B or from California to New York to get to that important meeting. This posed a major, major threat to the economy. And so, Reagan did the smart thing. He fired all of the strikers. Each and every single one of them, I say to you. He got new guys to replace them, but 80% of the people, or 80% of the public, agreed with what he did. I mean, I would too. I mean, I would be worried if the economy would come to a halt because they didn't have email back then. They couldn't just email or text a guy from California to New York from California and say, oh, I'm going to show up late to a meeting. The flight's been canceled because of a strike or something. Mm-mm. Nope. I mean, yeah, they did have telephones and whatnot, but yeah, this was terrible, but I believe he did the right thing. But keep in mind, being an air controller, it's really stressful work, I say. You have to coordinate hundreds and hundreds of takeoffs and landings, and one tiny mistake could cost lives of hundreds of passengers and airplanes. Right? Nobody wants an airplane accident. So this was really stressful work, and I mean, I'd see why these people would go on strike, but anyways, that's pretty much why I would be getting paid much more in this pipe fitter union than I would in a non-union. So, yeah, I was like, pretty interesting. But anyways, that's all I have for today. I wish I could talk much more about unions, but to tell you the truth, I'm pretty sure I've gone over the minimum of 8 minutes long in video length. And honestly, I could probably cover a bunch more. Like, I could probably cover an hour's worth of talking about unions, but for the sake of time, I'd rather not take up a whole class period and potentially prevent other people from presenting their projects. And that would be very unfortunate because, I mean, I actually want to watch Moneyball and whatnot. So, basically, yeah, I'm trying to keep this short for the sake of time. But, I think that was everything. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, or if I said something that was inaccurate, please, by all means, feel free to ask me. Otherwise, I wish you guys luck if you guys still have some presentations to show, and have a nice day.